Welcome to the Splendor of Truth, and I am your host and the author, Januarius Asongu. And today we move into chapter 10. Chapter 10 deals with knowledge and transcendence, or transcendence, the epilogue of truth. Hello, friends, and welcome again. Today we arrive at part 4 of the book, Illumination, the Fulfillment of Knowledge. This final section brings together many of the deepest themes we have explored throughout this philosophical journey: truth, reason, ethics, freedom, flourishing, and ultimately transcendence itself. But before we enter chapter 10, let me briefly recap part 3. In part 3, we talked about agency. In chapter 10, we explored democracy as humanity's best mechanism for corrective for collective self-correction. In chapter 9, we examine human flourishing through fairness, love, sustainability, dignity, and ethical responsibility. Together, those chapters argued that truth is not merely abstract knowledge. Truth must become civilization. Truth must shape institutions. Truth must shape ethics. Truth must shape human relationships. Truth must shape the good society. And we said the good society is not utopia, but eventually every philosophy reaches a deeper horizon, and that horizon is mystery itself. Introducing part 4, illumination. Part 4 asks one of the oldest and most profound philosophical questions: what lies beyond knowledge? What lies beyond knowledge? Human beings seek understanding endlessly. We investigate the universe. We build scientific systems. We develop philosophy. We create technologies. We organize societies. And yet, even after this, mystery remains. We still confront consciousness, mortality, existence itself, the origin of reality, and the limits of human understanding. This is where part 4 begins, not with despair, but with humility. In this chapter represents the philosophical culmination of critical synthetic realism. Throughout the book, I have defended objective truth, rational inquiry, critical thinking, scientific humility, and ethical responsibility. But chapter 10 asks, what happens when reason reaches its own horizon? What do we do with mystery that remains unresolved? And my answer is this: the proper response to mystery is neither dogmatism nor irrationality. It is epistemic humility. That brings us to the limits of knowledge. One of the central arguments of chapter 10 is that human knowledge is always partial. This does not mean truth does not exist. Truth exists objectively, but finite human beings approach truth progressively, asymptotically, and imperfectly. The more we learn, the more we realize how much remains unknown. Science itself demonstrates this. Every discovery opens with new questions. Every breakthrough reveals complexities. Human understanding expands endlessly, yet total comprehension remains beyond reach. And this realization should not produce arrogance, it should produce humility. The asymptote of comprehension. In this chapter, I introduce the idea of the asymptote of comprehension. Just as mathematical asymptote approaches a line infinitely without fully reaching it, human beings approach truth without ever exhausting it completely. We grow in understanding, we refine knowledge, we eliminate error, but mystery remains. And that mystery is not failure. It is part of the human condition. That is why philosophy ultimately leads not only to knowledge, but also to wonder, faith, and reason revisited. Now, throughout my intellectual life, I have worked at the intersection of philosophy, theology, psychology, and ethics. And chapter 10 revisits one of the great historical tensions, faith and reason. But I reject the false opposition between them. Reason without humility can become arrogance. Faith without rational discipline can become fanaticism. Critical synthetic realism seeks a middle path. It argues that reason must remain open to mystery and faith must remain intellectually responsible. The chapter therefore proposes what I call the reverence, or what I call reverence through humility. Not blind certainty, not irrational surrender, but the recognition that reality is deeper than our current comprehension. The ethics of mystery. One of the most important themes in this chapter is the ethics of mystery. Human beings often respond to uncertainty in unhealthy ways. Some retreat into absolutism, others abandon truth altogether. Some worship ideology, others embrace cynicism. But maturity requires something more difficult, the courage to live responsibly without uncertainty. Sorry, the courage to live responsibly within uncertainty. Critical synthetic realism therefore teaches that truth is absolute, but human understanding remains provisional. I've mentioned in the past about the provisional nature of knowledge or of human understanding. This protects us from both arrogance and despair. It allows inquiry to continue. Let's look at technology, AI, and the future of humanity. Chapter 10 also reflects on humanity's technological future. Artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and digital systems are rapidly transforming civilization. But technology alone cannot answer humanity's deepest questions. Technology can increase information, but but wisdom remains moral. A civilization that becomes technologically powerful without becoming ethically mature becomes dangerous. And that is why the future of humanity ultimately depends not merely on innovation, but on moral and epistemic responsibility. The central challenge of the 21st century is not simply can humanity become more powerful, but rather can humanity become wise enough to govern its power responsibly. Knowledge as participation. Towards the end of the chapter, I propose a deeper understanding of knowledge itself. Knowledge is not domination, knowledge is participation. To know truthfully is to participate more responsibly in reality. Science becomes participation in the intelligibility of knowledge. Ethics becomes participation in justice, and love becomes participation in human dignity. And philosophy itself becomes participation in the endless human search for meaning. This transforms knowledge from mere information into moral vocation, the splendor of truth. Now, as the chapter approaches its conclusion, we arrive again at the book's central image, the splendor of truth. Truth is not merely cold correctness. Truth possesses splendor because it illuminates. If it frees the mind from illusion, it aligns humanity with reality. It makes flourishing, it makes flourishing possible. It protects freedom from manipulation, and it opens the human spirit towards transcendence. The entire journey of this book has been a defense of that light. In the next and final episode, we are going to focus on the epilogue of the book. Truth as Liberation, the final victory of knowledge. This final reflection will bring together the entire philosophical vision of critical synthetic realism and explore the enduring relationship between truth, freedom, civilization, and human destiny. It will serve as a closing meditation for the entire intellectual journey. Again, thank you so much for joining me once more. If you found this discussion meaningful, please click like, subscribe to the channel or the podcast, share this episode and other episodes to or with your friends, family, students, colleagues, and professional networks. And please feel free to leave a comment. I treasure in disagreements if there is. I would genuinely love to hear your reflection, questions, agreements, and even disagreements, because philosophy is ultimately dialogue. And in an age of confusion, polarization, and noise, thoughtful dialogue matters more than ever. Thanks again for listening. I am Januarius Asongu, the author of The Splendor of Truth. And remember, you can get your own copy from Amazon, from the publisher with Unstop. Think clearly is to live freely. Thanks.